Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well. Today I have another video on Caleb's Pro Tips series, and for today I'm going to be covering damage transferring. So damage transfer essentially implies that when you throw a fast attack, you are transferring the damage from their fast attack to the next Pokemon you swap to, rather taking it on your first Pokemon. Now, if you don't fully know what this is, you might have done it accidentally in the past, but let me break it down for you on how you intentionally do it in all of your battles if you would like, right? There are situations where you can go for this and you still shouldn't, but there are many situations where you can go for it and you should. First and foremost, you can't transfer damage from a 1 or 2 turn Pokemon. But if your opponent is using a 3, 4, or 5 turn fast attack on their Pokemon, then you can sometimes transfer that damage over. To transfer the damage effectively, you need to be able to throw your fast attacks and swap and still have 1 extra turn remaining to transfer damage. If your fast attack and swap equals the turn duration of the fast attack from the opposing Pokemon, then that damage is going to be registered on the first Pokemon and not the Pokemon you swap to. This is because on the last turn of the opposing Pokemon's fast attack, if it occurs during the middle of a swap, the damage is going to register on the first Pokemon, not the second one. Let me show you some visual examples so that you can see exactly what I mean. Before we get into the battles, I want to give a big shout out and thank you to all my patrons who've been supporting my content creation. If you'd like private one-on-one coaching, scrims against me, some of my league guides and strategies ahead of time, or even tune into my live stream battles, feel free to sign up through the Patreon link down below. In this first video, we see that it's no damage transfer is happening. I'm using a 1-turn Sand Attack Corviknight versus a 5-turn Magcargo. I throw 1, 2, 3, 4, and I swap. And over here, you could take a look. If you look in the back, you can see that that Incinerate damage did register. I threw only 4 Sand Attacks and then swapped on that 5th turn. Here, I throw only 3 Sand Attacks and then swap. And you can see here, Corviknight took no damage. That damage was transferred over to the Azumarill. Let's use another example here. 2-turn move. I throw 2 Shadow Claws and I swap over. 2 Shadow Claws plus a swap equals the 5-turn Incinerate. And you can see here, the damage does register onto my Alolan Sandslash. If I throw 1 Shadow Claw though, I end up transferring the damage over to my Azumarill. And you can see here, Shadow Claw on the Alolan Sandslash. Just 1 Shadow Claw is enough to transfer that damage. Now, let's use a different turn duration. 2-turn versus 4-turn. Obviously, if you throw 2 counters, you're definitely going to get hit by Confusion. I'm just using this as an example with the Primate, right? So you can't go 2, obviously. However, you could throw 1, because if you throw 1 Karate Chop and then swap over, that's 3 turns. But compared to the 4-turn Confusion, that 4th turn is registering on the Registeel afterward. Now, there are times where you can't possibly even transfer damage, because if you see here, 2-turn into 3-turn, you'll always be 1 turn difference. And because of that, anytime you're swapping is during that damage registration, which will be happening on your Swampert. So why should you use damage transfer? Understanding the mechanics behind the concept is important, but understanding when you should be using this mechanic is even more important. I have a Corviknight in the lead and I have a Azumarill on the back. Maybe my 3rd Pokemon is a Blastoise. Now, both of those Pokemon on the back can take some extra fire damage from that Magcargo and be in an okay spot, right? It doesn't matter if you throw an Overheat or a Rock Tomb at my Azumarill or my Blastoise. They're both going to be able to tank the damage pretty well. So it's okay if you farm a little bit extra energy on the Corviknight then swap over. Because when you damage transfer, you are throwing some extra fast attacks before swapping, which means that your opponent's Magcargo or whatever Pokemon they're using also gets a slight energy lead. Now, if the Pokemon you have in the backline doesn't mind an energy lead on a Magcargo or whatever's in the lead, then in my opinion, going for damage transfer is a really great strategy, because now you get a little bit extra energy on that Corviknight, because there's always a chance you can't flip switch advantage and you need to end up throwing an Iron Head from the Corviknight to try to take out the Magcargo. Hopefully it's chipped down from bubble damage or from rollout damage or from some other stuff throughout the battle, or Sand Attack damage even, to put it in a KO range, because you can't always flip switch advantage. Now let's use a different example. Let's say I have a Corviknight in the lead with a Azumarill and a Sableye in the back. Now, of course, you can transfer that damage to your Azumarill. That's not a problem, right? But if you come in Azumarill, most Magcargo leads are probably going to have an answer to Azumarill. So you're giving the Magcargo still a little bit extra energy. And yes, you could transfer the Resistant Incinerate to your Azumarill, but they might swap out right away. You have a Sableye in the back, his 3rd Pokemon instead of a Blastoise. Sableye is not the cleanest matchup into a Magcargo, right? And obviously Corviknight loses that. So if your best answer to the Magcargo now that you swapped in Azumarill is probably your Sableye in the back, because most people are not going to save Magcargo into that Azumarill, you're not going to zoom in for later, so you have to take it out with the Sableye. But you have to keep in mind that now that you damage transferred over, you also gave the Magcargo a couple extra turns of energy, meaning that's going to make it a little bit harder for you to take it out with the Sableye in the back, right? Or even the Corviknight if you're stuck in that situation. So in those situations, maybe you shouldn't damage transfer. Let's say you have a Corviknight, Shadow Drapion, and a Sableye. None of them are real great counters to that Magcargo. In that situation, is it worth damage transferring? Probably not. Because not only are you taking neutral damage on the Drapion instead of resist on the Azumarill, none of your Pokemon really flat out beat the Magcargo, especially when there's shields available on both sides. Because of that Magcargo has so much play into your team, you don't want to delay your slightly better matchup with Drapion and Sableye into Magcargo versus letting it stay in a matchup versus Corviknight just to get a little bit extra sand attack energy. So in those situations, I don't think it's worth transferring the damage. So a lot of times it depends on your team composition. You could use this in Go Battle League, you can use this in Show 6 Pick 3 in the official championship series, and you'll see a lot of top players do utilize this in situations where they can. I hope the visual representation was helpful, and if you end up using this yourself, let me know down below how it goes and if it helped you win a game or not. It doesn't mean that just because you damage transfer means that you could win a game, but it will give you a slight advantage for later for that Pokemon that mitigates some of that damage because they'll have that extra energy. If you like my pro tip series and know anyone that might find use in it, feel free to share with them. I have a whole playlist with my pro tip series as well, and all the previous pro tips in the description down below. As always, if you like this video, feel free to give it a like and share, subscribe for future content, and hit that notification bell to get alerted right when I post a new video. And I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.